Hey guys, happy Inauguration Day. That's right, it is Inauguration Day, January 20th, a day that will live in infamy because today, Donald Trump once again became president of the United States against impossible odds. He faced 2 assassination attempts, he faced 4 indictments plus multiple civil suits, 2 impeachments, a BS Mueller investigation lasting a year and a half, everything they tried to do to stop Donald Trump. And in spite of that, today, Donald Trump is president of the United States. Crying liberals? I'm not. Here is all of the things that we're looking forward to the next year. Obviously, we're looking forward to action on the border, immigration action. We're looking forward to strengthening NATO, making everybody pay their share fair, that 5%. We're looking on, hopefully, we'll see some pardons for the January 6th political prisoners. And we're looking to see the economy strengthen and finally move forward. The world will respect us again. America will be great again. And because it is January 20th, and because I'm currently in Washington, D.C., this show is pre-recorded. So hopefully I am anticipating everything I would have said today should I have been live today. And my puppet, he's in his trunk because he likes to sleep in, and I'm doing this in the morning before a very early flight. So I hope you watched a lot of the inauguration this morning. I know a lot of people were disappointed that it got canceled. People at hotels booked, non-refundable hotels, $2,000 a night in D.C. Everyone's excited to get their tickets. I was excited to have my ticket. But, it's cold, and it's supposed to be snowing, and, there might be some security concerns. We don't know what happened. But either way, the most important thing that happened on January 20th is that the president put his hand on that Bible and became president again. 47th president of the United States. That's what needed to happen. Kicking Biden out of the White House. See you later. And then we go and start the Trump presidency. Listen, I can't begin to tell you, and I know all of you feel the same way, what this means between the freedom of speech, between what they would have done should they have won. They would have censored our speech. They would have shut down whatever free speech platforms we have. They would have put Trump in jail. They were on a bad path. And I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and we were talking about, what does this mean? What's going to change? And I'll tell you, if you saw the images from the crypto ball from Friday night, you would have seen why Trump won. A cross-section of the country, not necessarily Republicans, not necessarily Democrats, just people. Americans coming together, because in the end of the day, there's a lot more that unites us than divides us. But for so many years now, for at least 4 years, you had the Democrats running around telling us that half the country's racist, half of the country's Nazis, bad this, bad that, Republicans suck. And I think the country got sick of it. I think the country got sick of being divided. Meanwhile, seeing their eggs go up and their gas go up and their milk goes up and their groceries go up and war break out over the world and the world laughing at us and Biden not knowing what day it is or what the fact that we don't have a 28th Amendment, all the things that people got frustrated with. And then the Kamala switch and then the BS fake endorsements from the influencers. I think the country just got sick of the division, of the phoniness, of the name calling. I think Americans are ready to move forward. You saw that since Donald Trump was elected. You saw his sweeping victory. And I do believe we're moving into a new era, an era of what I'm calling a new era of good feelings. I think Donald Trump is going to unite this country if Democrats let him. And I think when the Democrats stand in the way of Donald Trump uniting the country, I think the people will resoundingly reject them just as they have before. So we'll see if they're going to play nice. I doubt they will very long. We'll keep winning if they don't. And that's what needs to happen if we're going to save America. And that man behind me getting sworn in today on January 20th is certainly the first step of saving this country. I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful. And I'm curious to know what you guys thought about today and how you're feeling about today. You feel free to leave notes and comments here. I'll be checking the comments and participating in the chat, even though we're not live. And I just really want to know what you guys thought about today, what it meant to you. For me, it's a culmination of a lot of years of hard work doing whatever I could to help Donald Trump get elected. A lot of my friends worked very hard to get Donald Trump elected, and it was a collective effort. It needed to happen. in order to save this country. And I hope we keep this momentum going forward. I hope this America First movement, this populist movement that they think is a bad thing, continues to go forward, because we're inspiring freedom around the world. You've already seen it in Germany. We're going to see this roll out. People want their individual liberties. They took it too far with COVID and shutting down our free speech platforms. It is people are ready to take their liberty back, and certainly today was the very first step. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a quick break. And when I come back, I'm going to play an interview for you. A doctor of education, Amy Dufresne. She is a brilliant person when it comes to the labor market. And I sat down with her a few weeks ago to have a conversation about what the labor workforce might look like with DOGE, because they were talking about ending telework, returning people to the workplace, making the federal government more efficient. And that got me thinking, the entire country probably could be more efficient with use of AI and other efficiency tools. So why stop with the federal government? Why not go full bore and make our whole country more efficient, increase our GDP, and increase our quality of lives? That's what making America great again looks like. So I sat down with Amy, and we had a conversation about what that might look like. I thought this would be a good time for it. I'm sure your news feeds have been filled up all day with inauguration stuff. So let's take a mental break and think about the future and how to make America productive again. And so I hope you enjoy it, and it'll be up here right after the break. Stay around.
I'm Scotty Cahill, and I'm the founding partner at FinSec Life. FinSec Life is an independent agency that works with a multitude of carriers that brings the best pricing to each client we serve. With our 40 plus years of experience in the industry, allows us to deliver unique results to each individual client. We do not get paid until your policy is placed, until you have your insurance. So we will do the work. We will ensure that everything is taken care of, whether you get the best pricing, whether you get treated fairly by the underwriting team. If you have an existing policy and you want to know whether the policy is performing as it should, or if you have additional needs for insurance, please contact us at 321-800-3901, and we'll be happy to quote you on a new insurance. The phone number again is 321-800-3901, and the website is finseclife.com, financialsecurityforlife.com.
In today's fast-paced world, effective communication is the backbone of successful businesses. Are outdated systems and high costs slowing you down? Switch to Public Telephone Company for cutting-edge voice-over IP solutions. Enjoy seamless connectivity, unparalleled reliability, and significant cost savings. Tailor-made voice-over IP solutions designed for your business needs. Join countless businesses in transforming your communication with Public Telephone Company. Public Telephone Company. Revolutionize the way you connect.
I'm excited to announce our Christmas extravaganza is finally here. Get this season's flannel sheets for as low as $59.98. They won't last long, so get them while you can. Our famous My Slippers, they haven't been on sale for over a year. Regularly $119.98, now only $59.98. Our 6-piece towel sets are back in stock with extremely limited quantities, only $29.98. With hundreds of MyPillow products, there's something for everyone on your Christmas list. Bathrobes, duvets, quilts, down comforters, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save on all MyPillow products. For example, flannel sheets for as low as $59.98, or our 6-piece towel sets, just $29.98. But that's not all. I'm extending our 60-day money-back guarantee until March 1st of 2025. Plus, all orders over $75 or more ship absolutely free.
I am so sick of this woke crap.
Let's watch TV for normal people.
super influencer is someone that takes the cause that they fight for, whether it's social media, networking, partnerships, and just dominates that movement with it. Let's get into today's episode.
We gotta build a chicken coop today.
We have 4 beautiful children that we adopted.
Anytime you're out there with your kids, it's teaching them to be a productive member of society. Let's herd them like cattle, boys and girls. Come on. We take race out of it. We parent based off principles.
We're going to take everyone's phone so they can sit and actually talk to each other.
This is a kitchen fight for sure.
My name's Tito Ortiz.
Get some!
Everybody knows me from the fighting world.
Real.
But I'm also an avid fisherman.
Tito Ortiz got his sea monster.
Hello!
Hey guys, it's Conservative Ant.
I'm Kendall in Kentucky.
I'm Blake Reynolds.
I'm the Patriot Barbie.
I'm Amber Nicole Ortiz.
Check out the first and only non-woke entertainment.
Only on We the Studios.
You have daughters cheerleading, then you have parents chopping off their breasts.
There's so much to do to save America.
I'm really excited today to welcome Amy Dufresne to the show. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you, David. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much for being here because we're going to have a nerdy discussion about HR today, but it's going to be the most exciting HR discussion ever because you are the CEO of 2 different organizations, one, the Human Resources Certification Institute and the Human Resources Standards Institute. And you explained to me before we went on air how they worked together. Explain to me what you do in your professional world. Now, you're a doctor in education. You're very smart and you're very experienced. Explain to me what you do in your daily life, and then we'll talk about how the world is changing from the human resources perspective.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here to talk about HR, which is what my zone of genius is, and something that really sparks life in me. I was a CHRO before I became the CEO of both organizations. I actually founded one of the organizations, and we work together to advance the HR profession through learning, education, and certification. We also do this through standards. So we're very linked into what the work that's done around the International Standards Organization, or ISO. So we're really linked into that, and we're really trying to create some sort of a standardization across the board when it comes to HR, because there are all sorts of things that are going on in the profession, and this is a great time to be a part of it and a great time to be a worker, to really be sort of experiencing the change that we're seeing across many facets of all of our businesses. So it's a great time to be an HR leader.
So I'm excited to talk to you because, look, I'm a political guy. I do partisan things, but I don't like echo chambers. And I don't like having political discussions all the time because sometimes there's things that interest people regardless of who you vote for. And this discussion that we're going to have today, I think, is so important for everybody because for 2 reasons. One, there's a big focus right now, of course, because after the election, you had Trump appoint Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk to what he's calling the Department of Government Efficiency. And I think it's to because of the meme coin, the Dogecoin. Anyway, so there's been a lot of focus on reduction of the federal workforce and the assumption that there's a lot of fraud, waste, and abuse. Vivek made news the other day saying that one of the ways he can cut the federal workforce is by eliminating telework. And he cited large numbers of federal employees who telework. There was some disagreement from the labor union saying that the numbers aren't essentially accurate. But post-COVID, telework became something that was pretty common. I mean, everybody went to work at home. It sort of made telework mainstream, and a lot of people got spoiled by it. And there was a situation where post-COVID, people were being invited back to the workplace, and they said, no, thank you. I'll find a job that allows me to stay remote or telework. Mm-hmm. And so what I really wanted to ask you about to start things off is how has the workforce changed pre-COVID, post-COVID with respect to telework? And is that sort of getting to a pre-COVID place of what we would call normal, or is this here to stay?
So I think that organizations across the board are really in and looking forward to the future and sort of AI and all things that are sort of going on right now. And as I talk to CEOs across many different industries, Some have successfully integrated the whole hybrid work or total telework 100% in their organizations. Some people have it hybridly, and some people have gone back overarching. They said, nope, we're all going back. And I think it really depends on the culture of the organization. Like, what are you trying to do with your organization? And how do you measure the outcomes of your team members, if like pre-COVID, post-COVID? And if you're not seeing the results that you're anticipating to have, or that you are holding up to shareholders, that you're saying we're going to meet these and you're not, you got to change some things. And I think organizations are really taking a hard look at this and are saying, this is not working for us. We got to have people come together over the water cooler, the physical water cooler, not sort of the virtual one that a lot of organizations kind of created to try to simulate that water cooler talk. But I think you've got to figure out what happens best in your organization. And I think some organizations have really reframed like how they're working by eliminating some of their working spaces. But I've been to organizations and had CEOs walk me around their new space, which they have reimagined. And I think this is a really great thing that's happened, that they've reimagining the workplace itself so that work doesn't happen at a physical desk. There may be sort of pods of, people coming together that are creating these sorts of synergies, or they're creating these places for people to come that they meet once a quarter, and the whole entire organization comes together, and they're talking about strategy, and they're talking about the work that needs to get done. So I see it, from large companies, super uber large Fortune 50 companies, to really small mom and pop that are really sort of reimagining how this whole work gets done, and what it looks like. And I think it's on, again, I think it goes back to culture.
Let me ask you how you see, because there's two types. It's almost like selling a house with the labor market, because when it's a buyer's market, you approach it in one direction. If it's a seller's market, you approach it to another. And if we're in a high unemployment phase, well, companies can be more picky about who they want, because there's a lot of applicants out there. And when unemployment's low, you kind of have to start providing incentives again: better retirement, better benefits, better vacation options, like telework. So I have two questions for you, and I want to ask you what you see. And I understand we just had an election and things can change with monetary policy. But what are your ideas as far as labor trends? Are we heading to a more a lower employment trend or a higher unemployment trend, considering really with respect to inflation and potentially a deflationary market, which is what they've predicted?
Right. Well, I think when you look at just even the number of bodies, the demography that we have, and I'm just talking in the U.S. I'm not talking globally, although we're seeing these trends globally, that there are less workers that are out there, and as people are retiring. And as more people are retiring at a faster pace, just because that's where we are, and sort of when you look at those demographic trends, there are just less workers. But we're seeing efficiencies created across organizations through things like AI, which, I think back in my career when I started in HR a long time ago, um, many decades ago, there were functions that I was doing that no one wants to do. No one wanted to do that. They're all automated now. And thankfully, they are all automated now, because they're not a really fun part of the job. And so that's where I think that we're seeing efficiencies happen, and we're seeing employees and folks that are not investing in themselves. They're sort of saying to the employer, oh, you need to take care of me. And some employers have a really good plan from a development perspective, but many organizations don't, because they just don't have the resources to be able to do that kind of planning from a professional development perspective. So I think that as we are seeing the onset of AI in a more robust way, coupled with, we just did some research with an organization called the Institute for Corporate Productivity, And we know that there are organizations, almost 80% of organizations that we surveyed are either not embracing AI or they're just investigating it. So they're kind of sort of sticking their head in the sand around this, and they're not really giving their team members the ability to experiment. And I think it's a miss to give people that space to experiment and explore and build up their skill set, because as we see the embracing of technology and more AI, I think in the next decade, we're gonna see the amplification of this change in ways that we never imagined. And I think that's what, some of these folks who are following the trends are seeing right now. And employees have to invest in themselves, and employers are gonna have to, push folks to kind of, all right, you got to upskill yourself, because this whole reskilling is a real issue for employers and employees to make sure that their skill set is what we need for the workforce of tomorrow.
I have two. You make my mind go into two separate directions, and I want to go one way and then come back the other. I do tangents a lot.
That's good. I love it.
Rabbit holes, tangents.
It's good.
ADD conversations is what I call them. Anybody who's ADD like me, we can talk all day, because we'll talk about 7 things and then circle back. If I talk to somebody not ADD, they get mad at me. They're like, I was just talking about something. You totally changed the subject. No, I didn't change it. I'm just bringing a new subject into the. We'll get to about 7 subjects, and we'll get to them all at once.
That's right.
No, but what I'd like to do, because you mentioned something about the changing workforce and AI and efficiencies, and you mentioned that there's less workers. And this is an argument that I've heard a lot, and I really want to unpack this briefly, because I've never understood this, and I know a lot of people are confused about this, and I don't want to deviate too much from AI, because I definitely want to get back to it. But how is it possible that we have less workers? And people have said that the argument is, people are underemployed. People are taking more than one job. People are, how do you have low employment but less workers? How does this all make sense? Like, what are we doing right now in the labor force? Are there less workers? Is unemployment low? Are people working extra jobs? Are people not getting paid enough? What is the truth in the labor market right now?
So I think according to the data, so back to government, sort of we look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and we're looking at sort of these trends of people that are like in the eligible workforce. We always know that there are folks that are not in the eligibility of the workforce just because of, differing abilities, people who are incarcerated. So there's, sort of this group of individuals that are kind of off percentage-wise, or sort of out of the labor market.
So they don't count those in unemployment then, right?
No, they don't.
So if you're ineligible for whatever reason, we don't count you. Okay.
And there's trends. I mean, the psychometricians that are in the back, statisticians that are looking at all these numbers, they know what they are looking at. They know what sort of this looks like, and they cap out what are some of those, groups of percentages of groups that we know are not going to be in the workforce. So that, coupled with the birth rate, our birth rates are changing. So that then changes the number of workers that are going to be out there. Now, that's not a problem for today or tomorrow, right? This is a problem for 20-ish years from now. But when you're looking at the trends of children being born right now, that there's just less. It's, for a variety of different reasons, there's just less potential coming up.
So unemployment going lower isn't necessarily a sign of a strong economy. It could be a sign of the fact that there are less jobs. And if I'm understanding this correctly, there are less people to work in those jobs. And so
that's right.
Because you have a smaller eligibility base, unemployment's going to be lower, because there's not as many people waiting for a job, because this group is ineligible, this group is aged out, and then there's jobs available to people, but there's nobody to fill those jobs. So unemployment is down, but it's not unemployment is down because so much economic growth is happening that we just can't keep up with it. Unemployment is down because the labor force is down, essentially.
Right.
So there's less workers available, which brings unemployment. Okay, that's very interesting. Right. And then I want to tie it back to what you talked about with being dynamic in the workforce and the next generation, the Gen Zers, because this is all very interesting to me, especially when you start talking about mandatory minimum wages. The argument against mandatory minimum wages is companies are savvy. And if it costs $20 an hour to flip a burger at McDonald's, they're going to invent a machine that's going to flip the burger, and it's going to cost them less than $20 an hour.
That's already happening.
It's already happening.
Yum Brands is doing it right now. I did a podcast with the CHRO for Yum, and they have beta right now restaurants where robots are taking AI, robots, large language, all that good stuff. They're taking the orders of folks that are coming through the drive-through, and the human is cooking the food. They're doing that right now. So it's to your point, it's happening.
Right. And so we already have an issue of not enough people to work, right? So companies are going to have to find labor where labor doesn't exist.
Right.
And I'm going to put aside the whole where to get labor from conversation, because that's a whole nother show. But but that's one factor. But then you talk about the expectations of Gen Zers, because you have a situation where and I talk about telework at the beginning of the show, because these kids are coming out of college. They want to work. They've taken classes at home. They don't go to offices. They don't wear clothes. They have sweatpants. That's their formal wear. So are you finding that Gen Zers, when they show up to go to work, because, I mean, this is your future labor force, limited labor force, because birth rates are down. Elon Musk talks about that all the time. Are you finding that this generation isn't prepared to work in and I'm not going to call it the modern work environment, because I think the work environment needs to change to become modern, but are you finding that Gen Zers have a difficulty working in the traditional work environment?
100%. That's happening across the board. I'm talking to CHROs, folks in HR, and Gen Zs are coming in. They don't have those soft skills that they need. They don't understand what it means to show up to work on time. What does that look like? You've got to pay attention. You've got to, I mean, there's this whole big problem, and organizations are saying to those folks, you need to seek excellence elsewhere at epic proportions beyond what we've seen before. Employers are not tolerating it because those folks are unskilled to come into the workforce. So this is a problem that we've got to be helping that generation to understand what work looks like. What does it mean? And so that's another sort of, opportunity for growth for all of us to figure out how do we can't write off that generation. We've got to help them to understand what this means, because those soft skills they've missed.
And I guess this brings me to the last $1 million question. Because you talk about AI, we talk about a shrinking labor force, and we expect that trend to continue. We talk about the next generation of workers leaving college without the skills to adapt to the current labor force or labor requirements of the current environment. We talked about the minimum wage affecting autonomy, and how AI will start to play a bigger role in companies in leading to efficiencies. So here's the $1 million question. To get to a modern workforce, because this is what I said before, I said, I don't want to call this the modern workforce. Are we maybe having to reimagine the workplace? Because if this next generation, you say they lack the soft skills, potentially, is it possible that the corporations that are in business right now lack the soft skills to utilize the modern workforce of today? Because you mentioned earlier AI integration with the next generation. Well, if current company management structures and corporate structures don't understand how to utilize the technology of this generation, maybe instead of giving these new employees soft skills, maybe it's reimagining the way we run companies, because AI will replace certain jobs, but you're going to need the people who understand AI to make that efficient. You can't just turn a robot on the hamburger machine. Somebody's got to know how to cook the hamburger in order to tell the AI how to cook the hamburger. So do you see a way for, I guess, the lack of skills of the current labor force, and I'll call it the lack of skills of the current corporate force? Maybe there's room for a collaboration where, in using modern technology like AI, in using the skills that this new generation does have, and maybe we're looking at a completely different world where everybody's reimagining the workplace. That's my $1 million question.
Well, I think that is a $1 million question, but I think that is exactly where, together with our team, we've got to reimagine what work looks like, what the workplace looks like, and how we're going to build upon the skills. Gen Z, they have a perspective that they haven't known a time when they didn't have a computer or a phone, or both, or two of each of those things. And they're figuring out ways to utilize the technology in very unique ways. So it is an embracing of both to bring together and to think about how are we going to get work done in the future, and what does that look like? Is work, what does this gig space mean? Is it that we all become gig workers and organizations pluck us out and think about, okay, I need somebody to do this role, and I pluck that person out for 6 months and they help me to do that, and then I sort of build behind that person's skills and capabilities with other gig workers. I mean, I think the world is wide open on what this looks like, what organizations look like, and how work gets done. I mean, you look at just some of the organizations that have changed, like, Chegg, who was what this gen leaned on to help them to work. And now they're all saying, all right, now we're all jumping to Chat GPT, and that changed Chegg literally overnight, with what they were doing. And they're having to reimagine themselves. So it is really an interesting world of rapid change and movement, and we've got to really tap all the generations to pull them in to think about the future of work.
Yeah, I think back to the 1930s when you have an industrial revolution. You had a
That's
bunch of
right.
farm workers going, "What do I do now? I don't know how to use this stuff." And they tried to re-educate the workforce, move them to the cities, give them skills they didn't have. Inevitably, we ended up with a lot of people who were unable to become employed. And so I think it's good that people like you are thinking about this ahead of time, because we don't want to find ourselves on the wrong side of technology. It's here. We are going
right.
through a technological revolution. Chat GPT and the AI models are growing, advancing every single day. And I do think this generation of young people understand it. I think you're exactly right. I think the gig economy, or I think we need to reimagine the days of, you think back to the old sitcoms where the father figure would come home from work and be like, "I'm going to ask my boss for a raise because we need a new fridge." And you had retirements and you worked at one company your whole life. We do seem to be moving into almost like a perpetual state of independent contracting.
Right.
But maybe that is the future. And I can't wait
Yeah.
to see it. And I can't wait to talk to you more about it as the world changes, because I believe we are going through a new revolution of some sort, a technological revolution. And I don't think we can possibly understand what that's going to look like in the next few years. But I mean,
I agree.
it's changing so rapidly.
It
I was
is.
talking to somebody about this the other day. Like I said, in the last 20 years, we've had so much technological advancement versus the last 2000. I mean,
That's
we
right.
went from an airplane to a faster airplane to a rocket ship to a better. In the last 20 years, we went from giant computers to ones we hold in our hands.
That's
We went
right.
from cars that we drove poorly to cars that drive themselves. We are in a technological revolution and at light speed. And it is so fascinating to kind of combine that with what you're talking about, the labor force. I never even thought about it that way. Amy, thank you so much for your time today. Hopefully we can do this again and check in with each other and see how we're doing a few months from now as this changes. Because I agree with you. I think there's a lot of changes coming, and I appreciate your insight so much.
Yeah, well, it's great to be here. I love talking about innovation and agility, and it is here in a rapid way. And this is a great time to be watching this whole space evolve.
Now,
So thank you.
if people want to follow up and say, "Man, I really like what Amy had to say. I want to learn more about her. And I want to read book." How can people find you and learn more about you and the work you do?
Yeah. We have a website, hrci.org or hrsi.org. You can also linked in with me at Amy Dufresne, and I'd love to connect with anybody who's interested in learning more about sort of the future of work, the future of HR, and anything in between that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here today, and look forward to chatting with you again real soon.
Super.
All
Thank
right,
you.
take care. Well, that's all for me, guys. I am going to continue my party in DC. Hopefully you're partying wherever you are at home. Hopefully you enjoyed that interview. And we will be back live again to celebrate this amazing inauguration very next Monday, 8 p.m., as always, where my plush pal Puppet will be back joining us. I'm thinking about a cool show. I'm thinking about bringing in a bunch of MAGA musicians, the people who played at the inauguration, the play at the Turning Point events. And, I think it's probably time for us to take a deep breath. We got a lot of work to do in the next 4 years, but maybe I think this next coming show, I'm going to do a MAGA musician show. I think I'm going to fill the show with musicians that love America, and I'll bring that to you, and it'll be our after party, our inauguration after party. And assuming nothing crazy happens in the next 7 days, maybe we'll do a MAGA party next Monday. So make sure you set reminders, follow, like, share, and we will say see you next week. Happy Inauguration Day, everybody.